Restaurant, nearly every female customer turns their head, attention drawn to a strikingly tall and handsome man walking in. Whispers ripple through the room as women admire his good looks, murmuring among themselves whether he might be a celebrity. Even the female staff can't help but sneak glances, captivated by his presence. The man strides confidently toward a woman already seated. That woman is Naeun Kim, who blushes slightly at the surrounding comments, secretly agreeing with them. She quickly sizes him up, noting his broad, straight shoulders and firm, muscular thighs, silently wondering what kind of doctor looks like that. But the moment he opens his mouth and calls her intern, her body jolts, caught off guard. Her thoughts spiral as a headache sets in, because the man standing before her is none other than Kangjoon Cha, one of the best surgeons at their hospital, and infamous for his temper. She came expecting to meet a stranger named Kangjoon Cha on a blind date, not realizing he was the very man she already knew too well. Her memory flashes back to a recent moment in her father's office at the hospital, where she was stunned to hear he had arranged a blind date for her. Though she was against it, her father insisted that the man she would be meeting was the youngest son of SJ Corporation, and if she could win his favor and become part of their powerful family, it might help him become hospital director. Outraged, she asked if he was trying to sell her off for a promotion, but her father snapped back, threatening to kick her out of the hospital and even disown her if she disobeyed. Feeling cornered, she reluctantly agreed, and now, seated across from Kangjoon Cha, she's left speechless. It never crossed her mind that the wealthy heir her father talked about would be working at the same hospital, let alone be her intimidating colleague. As she remains frozen in disbelief, Kangjoon calmly picks up a glass of coffee and repeats his earlier question, asking why she's here. Nervously, she responds with the same question, referring to him as professor due to his status at work. A subtle smile plays on his lips as he tells her she can go back to work now. His dismissive tone rings in her ears and provokes her, and before she can stop herself, she raises her voice in frustration, reminding him he hasn't answered her question. Kangjoon looks surprised at her sudden outburst. Naeun gasps inwardly, regretting her tone, but instead of getting angry, he rests his elbow on the table and asks if she's a viper. Confused, she asks what he means. He explains that he was told the woman he'd be meeting wasn't someone named Naeun Kim, but someone stubborn and thick-skinned like a viper. The words hit her like a blow, and she timidly asks where he heard such a thing. Her mind quickly connects the dots. It must have been her brother, Jichul Kim, who once called her that. A new thought dawns on her. Could Kangjoon and Jichul have been classmates in medical school? The contrast between them couldn't be more glaring. Kangjoon is already the hospital's youngest assistant professor, while Jichul is barely hanging on as a fellow. Kangjoon mutters that this is getting interesting, admitting he had planned to send her off, but now finds himself curious. He asks if she intends to apply for his department. When she hesitates, he presses her again, and she quickly agrees. He laughs in response, surprised by her eagerness. Watching him laugh, Naeun's cheeks burn. She never imagined the strict and terrifying doctor could look so good when he smiles. She starts to understand why others secretly admire him. As he calls her name again, she straightens up and answers respectfully, thinking to herself that the blind date is basically over now, so the only thing left to worry about is how she'll face him back at work. Kangjoon calmly mentions that he's heard good things about her during her rotations, that many people have praised her work, and then wonders aloud how she earned the nickname of a stubborn viper. She responds with frustration, pointing out that he came here already knowing who he was going to meet. He chuckles, revealing that he didn't have much of a choice since his family pressured him into the date, but he was also curious to meet the sister that Jichul constantly complains about. He then remarks that the meeting has been fun, but time has passed and it's best they head out. She agrees, rising from her seat with a quiet sigh of relief, glad that the awkward meeting is over. But just as they begin to leave, she stops and asks if she should tell her father that Kangjoon rejected her. He turns and asks if that would cause her trouble. When she doesn't respond, he tells her not to worry and that he'll take care of it. Wondering how he plans to handle it, she pulls out her phone to call her father. On their way back to the hospital, she finally speaks with him. Her father immediately asks if the date is done. Frustrated, she demands to know why he never mentioned that Kangjoon Cha was a doctor working in their hospital. Ignoring the question, her father brushes it off and instead asks if she embarrassed herself during the date. Anger coils inside her as she questions whether he seriously expected the blind date to end in marriage. Memories of how he treated her and her mother flood back, his neglect, his manipulation, and now, once again, he's using her for his ambitions. She quietly responds that she did as he asked, adding that Kangjoon's feelings matter too. Hearing that the date didn't go as planned, her father coldly says he never expected much from her anyway. Her hand holding the phone drops slowly as she gives a bitter smile, muttering to herself that it's okay. She didn't really want to hear his harsh words anymore. She tells herself to stay strong, that all she has to do is endure a little longer until she reaches her dream. Staring at the towering building of Hanguk University Hospital where she works, her mind drifts to the past. As a child, she stood helplessly in this very hospital when her mother left her forever. She was powerless then, but not anymore. She knows she doesn't have the natural talent of someone like Professor Kangjoon Cha, but she's determined to become the best doctor she can be. She convinces herself that she can handle being used as her father's pawn for now. After all, it was just one blind date. She whispers words of strength to herself and keeps walking forward. She's got this. At 5 a.m, Naeun Kim starts her day by rinsing her face at the sink, her thoughts spiraling back to the blind date that continues to stress her out even after a full week has passed. Nothing has really changed since that day with Jun Cha, and although she's glad she hasn't run into him at work yet, the mere idea of crossing paths with him makes her feel awkward. Arriving early at Hanguk University Hospital, she is greeted by a colleague who notes her punctuality and informs her that 10 patients are lined up today for arterial blood gas analysis. She gives a brief response and moves on to begin her tasks, but before she can take another step, a cheerful voice calls out her name with exaggerated warmth, teasing her for always being early and calling her their department's ace. Woo Jae-lee, with a mischievous grin, places a hand over her shoulder and laughs, only for her to frown in annoyance as she tells him to back off, questioning what's gotten into him this early in the morning. He chuckles nervously, bows slightly, and pleads for her help, explaining that he failed to draw blood from a patient 3 times. Surprised, she questions his number of failed attempts while he continues to praise her as the best at arterial draws in the group. He admits that every time he tries, patients seem to be in pain. She thinks quietly to herself that arterial blood draws are indeed more painful than venous ones, which makes sense. Just then, he slips something into her coat pocket. Curious, she takes it out to find a red ginseng stick. He says it's a gift just for her and warns her not to share it, especially with Hyunsuk. She comments that Hyunsuk has dark circles lately and that they should take better care of him too, but Woo Jae shrugs and says Hyunsuk eats too much to need anyone's care. The last part of his sentence comes out so soft, it's almost inaudible, his face tinged with a faint flush. Naeun, unaware of the full sentiment, laughs it off and urges that they get moving to draw blood. As they start walking, Naeun suddenly freezes when she hears an announcement over the hospital speakers calling for Professor Jun Cha to report to the surgery room. Woo Jae notices her pause and asks what's wrong, but she brushes it off and keeps walking, silently scolding herself for reacting every time she hears his name, feeling like her heart might jump out of her chest one day. She wonders what would drive someone like Jun Cha, already born into wealth and status, to pursue something as exhausting and demanding as a medical career. Maybe he has his own reasons, she thinks, before Woo Jae's voice calls her back to the present. Meanwhile, at the hospital's faculty office, a knock sounds on the door before Ji-chul Kim enters, with a casual smirk, suggesting to the male lead that they grab lunch now that work is done. Jun Cha raises a brow, unimpressed, questioning since when they started eating together. Ji-chul plays it off with a laugh, saying they're co-workers after all. But Jun Cha knows better. He reads Ji-chul's curiosity clearly and gives him 10 minutes to say whatever he came for. Sitting down, Jichul starts going off about how much he hates Naeun, ranting that she burned all his textbooks just to annoy him, and even became a doctor just to prove she's better. Kangjoon Cha doesn't buy a word of it, inwardly thinking Jichul must have been the one mistreating her. He's already read the SJ Group's background reports on Naeun and her family, revealing the full truth of Vice Director Naeun Kim's secret, his illegitimate daughter, and how badly he treated her for years. Realizing Jichul's real motive, he cuts in and asks what he really wants. Jichul then reveals their father wanted him to ask how the blind date went. With a calm expression, Kangjoon Cha replies that they've decided to take more time to get to know each other. Jichul chuckles mockingly, clearly not believing it, and sarcastically asks if he's seriously interested in someone like Naeun. Kangjoon Cha bites back the urge to respond harshly, silently cursing the man's disrespect. Despite Jichul's insults, he can't help but think that Naeun is beautiful both inside and out, something Jichul will probably never understand. No one knows that Kangjoon Cha has actually known Naeun longer than he's let on. 2 years ago, a colleague had invited him to a university festival, giving him 2 tickets. At first, Kangjoon Cha wasn't interested, questioning the need to attend since they'd already graduated, but his colleague explained that the juniors had asked him to come and that the dance club was performing too. The mention of the dance club makes Kangjoon Cha freeze slightly, his mind immediately returning to a vivid memory. He remembers a particular performance from that club and the girl who captivated him on stage. That girl was Naeun. His heart had skipped a beat watching her dance, and from that moment he had fallen hard. Hoping to see her again, he agrees to attend the festival. When they arrive, the event is bustling with energy, filled with guests chatting, eating, and enjoying the atmosphere. His colleague jokes about it being a costume-themed event, pointing out students in bunny outfits before heading off to greet others. Kangjoon Cha sits alone, scanning the crowd, and then he sees her. His eyes widen as he recognizes Naeun wearing a bunny costume, busy taking orders and serving dishes with a bright smile. His face turns slightly red as he watches her, stunned by how cute she looks. As if fate were testing him, 2 guys behind her comment loudly about her costume, one of them reaching out to touch the bunny ears. Kangjoon Cha's expression turns cold in an instant, shooting them a sharp glare that causes them to back away quickly. Naeun, unaware of what just happened, turns in his direction and approaches him politely, asking what he'd like to order. Kangjoon Cha keeps his eyes on her, making her cheeks flush without warning as she tries to focus, but his unwavering gaze distracts her. He says something she doesn't catch, which makes her glance at him confused, unsure why he's smiling like that. He casually jokes about her costume, and she sharply insists she needs to take his order. Instead of responding directly, he tells her to go take a break and that she should send the club president over to him instead. She asks if he means Sungmin, which he confirms with a slight nod. As she walks away, he watches her intently, feeling completely thrown off by her. Chuckling softly, he wonders how someone could be that adorable. Not long after, Sungmin arrives in a yellow bunny costume, which prompts Kangjoon Cha to question the group costume choices and why everyone had to suffer in such thick, heavy outfits under the blazing sun. His gaze instinctively falls on Naeun, who's fanning herself with her hands, visibly uncomfortable. She turns slightly, realizing they're looking in her direction. Sungmin waves at her cheerfully, and then asks Kangjoon Cha if the costume isn't cute. Naeun quickly looks away. Kangjoon Cha scolds Sungmin, telling him to wrap things up and send the other students away, adding that third-year med students shouldn't be spending time waiting tables. He then hands over an envelope, and Sungmin, opening it and seeing the generous contents, grins widely and thanks him. As Kangjoon Cha walks away, he turns his head to see Naeun speaking to Sungmin. Inwardly, he reflects that it takes 3 years of med school to become an intern, and since she's coming to Hanguk University, he'll be there waiting for her. Back in the present, he reflects on how fate has brought them together again, unexpectedly, through a blind date. Jichul's voice suddenly interrupts his thoughts, asking if he's really interested in Naeun. Kangjoon Cha maintains a calm face, though there's a cold flicker in his eyes as he replies that Jichul is right, then tells him to leave his office. Jichul gets up with a dismissive wave, saying he's leaving anyway and plans to report this to their father. Watching him leave, Kangjoon Cha mutters to himself about how annoying he is. Just then, his phone rings with a call regarding the hospital conference preparations. Saying he's on his way, he heads out. Walking through the corridor, he hears someone yelling and realizes it's Jichul. Curious, he checks it out and finds Jichul scolding two female interns for not greeting him properly. Among them is Naeun, who is staring daggers at him. Jichul, clearly unsettled by her intense glare, twitches nervously before poking her shoulder and asking if she's planning to hit him. Kangjoon Cha silently calls him a jerk and is just about to step in when Naeun slaps Jichul's hand away. Clutching his hand dramatically, Jichul threatens her, demanding to know if she wants to meet her end. Kangjoon Cha watches, puzzled by the overreaction, especially since Jichul only got his hand swatted. Naeun, wanting no part in this, bows politely and excuses herself, ignoring Jichul's attempts to call her back. As she and her colleague walk away, Jichul shouts empty threats, pointing after them. Kangjoon Cha notes that his finger seems perfectly fine and figures Jichul is just being overly dramatic. Smiling to himself, he watches Naeun and quietly acknowledges how remarkable she is. Woo-jae approaches Naeun, having witnessed everything, and asks if she's okay after dealing with Jichul like that. Naeun frowns and explains that it was just a light tug and Jichul is blowing it out of proportion. In fact, she even regrets not breaking his hand. She sighs as she reflects on how terribly Jichul treated her when they were younger. It baffles her how someone so useless keeps getting lucky in life, born into privilege, protected by wealth and position. No matter how much of a mess he makes, their father always covers for him. While caught in these thoughts, she notices Kangjoon Cha standing a few meters away, looking directly at her with a smile. She quickly grabs Woo-jae and urges him to leave with her, thinking to herself that the only way to survive the awkwardness of running into Kangjoon Cha is to avoid him entirely. On her day off, she tries catching a nap in the staff quarters, but her phone vibrates and interrupts her peace. Half asleep, she fumbles for it and sees a message from her father, asking her to come to his office. Grumbling, she wonders what everyone wants from her today. Sitting across from Director Kim in his office, he hands her a cup of coffee, saying it's made just the way she likes it. Cautious, she eyes the drink and wonders if he wants something from her, or if it's even poisoned. He smiles and tells her that Jichul mentioned Dr. Jun seemed interested in her and wants to meet again. Shocked, she swears inwardly, not believing what she's hearing. Director Kim then starts praising himself, saying Dr. Jun must have taken a liking to her because she resembles him. He laughs, insisting that she and Kangjoon Cha will end up together, calling it a blessing to have the SJ group as in-laws. Her expression shifts, and she calmly tells him he's mistaken. He immediately glares at her, demanding to know what she just said. She clarifies that she hasn't been in touch with Kangjoon Cha since the blind date and that there's nothing between them. Ignoring her completely, he tells her not to worry, that she'll hear from them soon, and wedding preparations will be underway in no time. She frowns, questioning how far he's willing to take this, wondering if he's serious. Without pause, he pulls out a card from his coat and places it on the table. It's a gym membership pass for a hotel gym, and he instructs her to use it regularly since Dr. Jun is known to frequent it, explaining that familiarity breeds connection. She glares silently annoyed, but thinks it's better to just take it and avoid further argument. He also hands her a credit card, telling her to spend on improving her appearance. Although she disapproves of all of this, she accepts them just to get out of the situation. He wraps up by reminding her that she'll be doing her general surgery rotations next month, and that will be another great chance to get close to Kangjoon Cha. With that, he dismisses her from the office. Outside the office, she stands frozen, her expression pale as her mind replays the memory of her conversation with Kangjoon Cha during their blind date, a moment that now seems heavier than it did then. She had suggested that he report back to their families, letting them know that he had rejected her, but instead he had told her not to worry, that he would handle it himself, since telling the truth might cause her unnecessary trouble. Now she sighs deeply, regretting ever trusting him to take care of it because the situation clearly spiraled far beyond her expectations. Just then Juncha suddenly appears behind her, calling her intern, catching her off guard and asking what she is doing there. Nervously, she turns around and asks him what brings him here, but he just repeats the question back at her, his eyes fixed on her. She stares at him, wondering if he's about to leave for the day, but then again, she notices how impeccably dressed he is, far more than what's necessary for the hospital. She immediately concludes that her father must have jumped to conclusions again, dragging Jun Cha into things he never agreed to. And she reminds herself that there's no way she could look presentable standing next to someone like him. Her eyes begin trailing his features almost involuntarily, noting how absurdly handsome he is, how perfect his posture looks, how flawless his skin is, and how his lips look like something straight out of a luxury lipstick commercial. Caught up in her own thoughts, she doesn't even realize he's been observing her reaction. And Jun Cha suddenly speaks, asking if she likes what she sees while subtly pointing to his lips, clearly having noticed where her attention went. Her mind blanks out in panic. Her face goes crimson, and she starts to think he must be testing her or teasing her. Then, without warning, he invites her to dinner. She blinks in confusion, clearly puzzled, wondering why, and he simply tells her that he's asking her out on a date. She asks why on earth she'd go on a date with him, to which he answers vaguely that they can talk about that over dinner. Feeling cornered, she quickly bows slightly and announces that she'll pretend this whole conversation never happened before speedwalking away from him, desperate to put distance between herself and whatever that moment just was. Not long after she disappears, Jun Cha's phone rings and he glances at the screen, surprised to see that his father is calling directly, something that never happens since he usually contacts him through his secretary. He answers, and his father immediately starts teasing, asking if he's finally matured now that he's choosing to spend his spare time meeting women. Jun Cha blinks, momentarily thrown off, wondering how his father even found out about this, and then it clicks in his mind that it must be Director Kim who ran his mouth. As his father continues speaking, asking if he's decided to keep seeing the daughter of Director Kim, he points out that June isn't someone who does anything he doesn't want to do. Jun Cha smiles softly to himself as he listens, thinking that the truth is simple. He just likes her far too much to ignore it. In another scene, Naeun is seen attending to a patient who's cheerfully asking if he can be discharged. She replies with a bright tone that she'd recommend he stay at the hospital for at least 3 or 4 more days, assuring him that with good rest, he'll be heading home in no time. The patient expresses gratitude, and as she exits the room, she runs into Hansok, who casually asks if she isn't off duty. She replies that she only dropped by to check on a few patients and is now heading home. He praises her dedication and mentions that Wu Jai had dashed off the moment his shift ended. They part ways and she begins walking alone again, thinking to herself that Wu Jai was actually off duty today. That thought triggers the memory of the hotel gym membership card her father gave her, the one she originally didn't want anything to do with. She also remembers Wu Jai once mentioning that he goes to that very gym sometimes, and she's heard that the place is quite high-end. She stares at the card in her hand, thinking that even though she despises her father's manipulative reasons, it would honestly be a waste not to use something this valuable. And maybe she could at least benefit a little from all this mess. Pulling out her phone, she sends a quick message to Wu Jai, but he calls her almost immediately after, yelling through the phone for her to stop using his full name like that. She ignores the complaint and asks where he is, to which he replies that he went for a swim. When she asks if he's at the hotel gym's pool, he confirms it, and she tells him to wait because she's coming to meet him. He warns her that only members are allowed in and suggests she wait outside so he can come get her, but she quickly tells him not to worry because she already has a membership card, one that he doesn't need to stress over. Our girl walks into the swimming area in a swimsuit, quietly taking in the serene beauty of the space, murmuring to herself how lovely it all looks. The soft lights reflecting off the water and the gentle atmosphere wrapping around her like calm music. Just then, Wu-jae calls out to her from behind, and she approaches him with a relaxed stride, her presence confident. As they stand face to face, Wu-jae finds himself staring, momentarily speechless, his face blooming with an unintentional blush. She smirks knowingly, clearly amused by his reaction, and throws a playful jab at her own appearance, claiming she's no joke. Wu-jae, regaining his composure, responds with a teasing taunt, saying even an elementary schooler would look better than this, his words dripping in sarcastic humor. She throws him a mischievous grin, telling him he's really asking for it, and before he can escape or protest, she pushes him into the pool, but the force takes both of them in, splashing loudly into the water. Resurfacing with laughter bubbling in the air, Wu-jae challenges her to a swimming race, asking if she can even swim and proposing that the loser buys the drinks. She accepts the challenge without hesitation, both of them quickly preparing for the friendly battle. The race begins and the pool ripples with their energy, but it's clear from the start that Wu-jae is faster, and he ends up winning by a wide margin. He can't believe he actually beat the invincible Naeun, his voice filled with victorious disbelief. She asks if he really enjoys beating her that much, and he tells her honestly that he never managed to defeat her in academics, so this moment feels like sweet revenge. She fires back that if she had learned how to swim properly, she would have won easily. He laughs and asks if she wants him to teach her for real, to which she replies that maybe, if there's time. After the splash and laughter, Wu-jae leaves to grab drinks while she heads to the lounge to wait, wrapping herself in a towel and drying her hair as she sits. Her gaze drifts and catches someone reclining nearby, someone who must have overheard everything between her and Wu-jae earlier. Looking closely, her expression shifts as she realizes it's Kangjoon Cha. He sits up, casually noting her surprise, and she walks over to greet him. He comments that she and Wu-jae seem to be having a good time, and she responds lightly that they're pretty close. But underneath her words, she picks up a subtle change in his expression, a trace of annoyance, and she wonders quietly what he's doing here and why he seems displeased. Then Kangjoon Cha throws out a comment about getting jealous, and she turns to look at him sharply, confused by what he means. To ease the tension, he changes the subject and asks if she's off duty today, which she confirms. But then he drops an unexpected question, asking if she came here to see him, only to retract it a second later by pointing out that she's obviously here with someone else. He wonders aloud if she's trying to make him jealous, and she quickly denies it, explaining that she had no idea he was even here in the first place. He then suggests that maybe she got the gym membership specifically to see him, which leaves her smiling awkwardly, not knowing how to respond to such a forward question. He continues, saying she seems perfectly fine going out with colleagues, but doesn't want to go on a date with him, the words hanging in the air with a certain weight. Reading the mood, she decides it's best to pivot, commenting on how amazing his physique looks, better than most professional swimmers, trying to lighten the vibe. He smiles, clearly catching on to her attempt to steer the conversation away, and that smile sends a small shock through her, her face heating up as her eyes momentarily get stuck on his chest and thighs, the whole situation quickly becoming dangerous territory for her composure. Just then, he suddenly calls her name, startling her enough to shriek a little. He reminds her that she's rotating through internal medicine and that this kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated in general surgery, then gets up to leave. As he walks away, she sits back down, guessing that he means she won't have much time for things like swimming and leisure once her rotation shifts. Letting out a soft sigh, she leans back into the sofa as Wu-jae returns, holding 2 glasses of juice. He immediately asks if she's okay, sensing a shift in her mood. And she casually tells him that she went on a blind date the previous week. He's stunned, asking if she's being serious and wanting to know who the guy was. She tells him it was Professor Kangjoon Cha from their hospital, which makes Wu-jae explode in disbelief, claiming she must have gone completely mad from dreading her general surgery rotation. She frowns at his dramatic reaction, warning that if he keeps this up, she won't explain anything. Standing up, She tells him that it's going to be a long story and that she'll grab a drink first, suggesting they meet at the hotel lobby after she freshens up. Later in the evening, at the hotel lobby, Kangjoon Cha steps out of the elevator and looks around in mild confusion, trying to confirm if he's on the first floor. Meanwhile, our girl is already there, hidden behind a nearby pillar, watching him quietly. She thinks to herself that he almost caught her and starts wondering where Woojai is. But more than that, her thoughts begin circling around why Kangjoon Cha hasn't left yet, why he's just standing there, and a sudden question pops into her mind. Could he possibly be waiting for her? Still standing behind the pillar, she quietly dials Woojai, wondering why he's taking so long to return. And the moment the call connects, Woojai rushes to apologize, explaining that he's back at the hospital with a patient who needs an emergency transfer, adding that Hyun-suk was originally in charge but came down with food poisoning, so he had to cover for him at the last minute. She asks if he got called in just for that, and he confirms it before telling her he really has to go and will call her later. After the call ends, she sighs and mutters to herself, debating what to do next. Her stomach growls, and with a groan, she decides to just grab a quick bite at a nearby convenience store, since she's starving. Assuming Kangjoon Cha has left by now, she casually steps out from behind the pillar only to run right into him. As she approaches to greet him, he immediately stops her, asking if she's waiting for someone. She brushes it off, saying she was just about to head out. And when he asks about the guy who was with her, she calmly explains that he had to rush back to the hospital for a transfer. With that settled, he asks if she's had dinner yet, and when she shakes her head, he invites her to eat together, adding that they should talk as well. She hesitates, standing in place even as he starts to walk off, unsure what he really wants to talk about. Noticing she hasn't moved, he turns back to look at her. After a brief pause, she decides there's no point in avoiding it anymore and that it's time to be honest. As she follows behind him, she jokes awkwardly, saying that if he's going to buy her dinner, it better be something expensive at least. He pauses mid-step and glances back at her, making her flinch slightly as she scolds herself internally for possibly overstepping, reminding herself who she's dealing with. But he doesn't say anything, just continues walking again, and she's left blinking in surprise as a small grin appears on his face, making her wonder if he just actually laughed. Soon they arrive at a hot pot soup restaurant, and he orders a wide variety of dishes, filling up the table. She looks at the spread, thinking to herself that she expected something more luxurious since he didn't deny her earlier request. He simply reminds her to eat before the food gets cold. She thanks him and begins to eat, quickly noting how delicious and satisfying the food is, and in the middle of her meal he hands her a drink, telling her to try it while also reminding her to slow down as she eats. His subtle concern makes her chest tighten slightly, and she starts wondering how someone like him could be this warm. She tells herself to get a grip, firmly reminding her own heart that the possibility of her and Kangjoon Cha ever being together must stay at an absolute zero, not even a sliver over 0.000%. With that resolve, she starts eating more messily, hoping that by acting like a pig, he might find her unattractive. In no time, most of the plates are squeaky clean, and she comments proudly that she's eaten most of the food while flashing a bright grin. He takes note of her eating habits silently, surprised that someone could eat so much without it being irritating. He then asks her if she always smiles that much, and she replies that she tends to smile when she drinks, but quickly adds that he shouldn't get the wrong idea because she's definitely not drunk, not in front of someone like him. After that, a short silence hangs between them until Kangjoon Cha suddenly calls her by her name for the first time, making her pause and look at him seriously, her cheeks tinged with red as curiosity fills her expression. He starts by pointing out that once her intern year ends, she'll be entering a 4-year residency with hardly any time to meet new people, which is why he wonders if it wouldn't be better for her to be with someone in the same field. She listens in silence, but then tells him that saying something like that just because he bought her food feels unfair, like he's cheating. But Kangjoon Cha isn't one to dance around words, so he goes straight to the point and asks if she has any intention of dating him or marrying him. She answers that she only went on the blind date because she was pressured to, and that she has no plans for either a relationship or marriage. Kangjoon Cha then shifts the conversation, bringing up her father and stating that he's certain her father won't let anything jeopardize his path to becoming director. He asks her if she's truly okay with that. Her eyes widen and her voice rises slightly with frustration as she demands to know how much he actually knows. Kangjoon Cha calmly replies that SJ Group conducted their own investigation and that he knows about her upbringing and background. Hearing that, she looks down in conflicted silence and quietly asks if he really knows everything. Kangjoon Cha nods, saying he doesn't want to keep wasting time going on blind dates with random women, and adds that she also needs his cooperation. And it's not like she dislikes him either, which he asks her to confirm. She hesitates before answering that they wouldn't work out and that the whole thing doesn't even make sense. He asks why she thinks that, and she simply says that she just can't do it, no matter how much she tries. His calm gaze stays locked on her, and she finally blurts out that she doesn't understand why he's doing all this when he clearly doesn't need her. He replies by asking if she thinks her problems will vanish by claiming that he rejected her, adding that her father, Vice Director Kim, isn't the type to let something like that slide. She responds that there's actually nothing her father can do if Kangjoon Cha himself decides to reject her. At that, Kangjoon Cha gives a resigned smile and says that it's fine, he has no desire to force her into something she doesn't want. She lowers her head and quietly mutters an apology, and he tells her that if she changes her mind, she should call him since he won't wait forever. As she nods silently, he adds one last thing, looking her directly in the eye, saying that she should remember he's not someone who's easy to shake off. After their meal, they step outside into the cool evening air, and he asks her where she lives, offering to drive her home. She declines, telling him not to worry since she's heading back to the hospital. He raises an eyebrow, noting that she said she was off duty today, and she explains that her actual house is far away and she usually just stays at the hospital. She lowers her gaze, quietly thanking him for today and wishing him a safe trip home. With that, she turns and walks away, leaving Kangjoon Cha standing in place, watching her go. The male lead steps into his apartment, pulls off his coat, and heads straight for the fridge. As he gulps down a can of cold water, his mind drifts back to Naeun, wondering how she's still staying at the hospital when even an intern's salary should be enough for a small room somewhere. Her comment about living there lingers in his head, and it doesn't make sense to him. Even while showering, he can't shake the memory of her voice saying they wouldn't work out. Staring at his reflection in the mirror, he sighs, thinking that whether she's Naeun Kim the intern, Naeun Kim, the sister of Jichul Kim, or any other label, to him she's always been a woman before anything else. Somewhere across town, Naeun and Woojai sit in the hospital lounge. Woojai leans back exhausted, sighing deeply, while Naeun sits silently beside him with her legs folded and arms crossed, clearly lost in her own thoughts. Her mind replays the dinner with Kangjoon Cha, reminding herself that rejecting him was the right decision since she'll be working under him for the next 4 years. Telling herself this again should bring comfort, but instead she feels even more conflicted. The weight of her thoughts had pressed on her earlier that afternoon when she saw Kangjoon Cha exiting the operating room. She had asked if the procedure went well, but he didn't even glance at her, giving only a curt nod. His mood felt distant and cold. She had wondered what was wrong until she saw another doctor, Hee-jin Ha, approach him asking about the surgery. What surprised her was the lightness in his tone, how he responded with ease, chatting with Hee-jin like the cold edge in him never existed. Watching them talk made something sink heavily in her stomach. Now, still seated beside Woojai, arms crossed tighter, she wonders why she feels so suffocated. Her thoughts are suddenly interrupted when Woojai hands her an envelope, saying he has something for her. Curious, she asks what it is, half-jokingly wondering if he accepted a gift from a patient. He denies it quickly, asking if she really thinks any patient would offer him money before explaining that it's just something from him to help with her grandmother's hospital bills. She stares at the envelope with a quiet, "oh," lost in thought. Her grandmother isn't related to her by blood, but worked as house staff in her father's mansion in Pyeongchang-dong. After her mother's death, this woman became the only person Naeun could depend on, the only figure in her life that felt like family. When she was fired from the household, it was heartbreaking. She had worked countless physically demanding jobs afterward, only to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Now she resides in a nursing hospital, and with no family of her own, Naeun bears all the medical costs alone. Managing those expenses with an intern's salary is nearly impossible, but still, she finds herself unable to accept help from others. Because if she allows herself to start relying on people now, she fears she may never be able to stop. Offering a small but sincere smile, she gently returns the envelope to Woo-jae, declining the money. He insists, urging her to take it just this once, but she politely refuses again, thanking him softly. Seeing that she won't change her mind, he accepts the envelope back, telling her not to forget to reach out if she ever needs anything. She nods and with a quiet voice admits that thinking about her grandmother breaks her heart. Woo-jae tells her she's kind and reminds her that she's doing the best she can. That encouragement brings a real smile to her face. In her heart, she thinks about how she always smiles more when she's sad and remembers the promise she made to her mother to stay happy. Woo-jae then suggests they go visit her grandmother soon, and she agrees without hesitation. In that moment, a burst of determination wells up in her, and she boldly declares that once she starts in general surgery, she's going to beat everyone. Woo-jae chuckles, asking if she should become a resident first, to which she frowns and accuses him of doubting her. He laughs it off, saying he's only joking and calls her their ace. Then his tone shifts as he carefully asks if Kangjoon Cha has contacted her since their last dinner. Naeun simply shakes her head and tells Woo-jae to pretend he knows nothing. She doesn't want any tension during her rotation under Kangjoon Cha. Woo-jae nods, promising to stay quiet, and Naeun stands, reminding him they need to go hand over reports to the next shift. As they walk out together, she thinks silently to herself about the road ahead. After completing the rotation in surgery, residency exams are next, and although Professor Kangjoon Cha is in that department, she's confident she'll rise above all of it. Inside the surgery department of the hospital, Naeun Kim approaches a first-year resident, Jae-min Hong, introducing herself formally. He acknowledges her punctuality and asks if she already received the report from the last shift, which she confirms with a nod. Wanting to maintain a respectful yet professional tone, she suggests he speak informally to her, following the custom where seniors speak casually to juniors while juniors maintain formal speech. Jaemin, caught up with responsibilities, politely excuses himself, but assures her he will catch her up later and wishes her luck on her first day. Bracing herself, Naeun prepares mentally for the day ahead, reviewing her scheduled tasks, which include giving injections, dressing wounds, and confirming surgery consent forms before the patients sign them. After completing everything on time, she lets out a small sigh of relief, acknowledging that her past experiences rotating in other departments have definitely sharpened her skills. Resident Jaemin returns, commending her for staying on track and finishing her duties promptly. Just as she considers dropping by the operating room before the next procedure begins, a group of senior doctors enters the hallway and begins approaching. Jaemin quickly signals her to step aside and whispers a reminder to bow as the senior doctors walk past. Among them is none other than Professor Kangjoon Cha. The new interns line up and introduce themselves, and when Kangjoon Cha asks who will be joining the surgery today, Naeun answers that she will. As their eyes meet, a flood of emotions stir inside her. She reflects on her recent decision to turn down his proposal, and a strange heaviness clings to her heart. She thinks it was foolish of her and tries to console herself with the belief that someone like Professor Cha and a mere intern like her were never on equal footing to begin with. He then questions whether the patient profile has been checked, and she promptly delivers her report, identifying the patient as Naeun Kim, a 42-year-old who will be undergoing a gastric resection. When she cites gastric adenocarcinoma as the diagnosis, he briefly looks surprised, impressed by her precision, before moving on to announce that rounds will begin. As he walks away with the group, Jaemin reminds the interns that they're supposed to be fully ready before the professor arrives, prompting all three of them to rush off to prepare. Naeun is the first to arrive at the entrance of the operating room, but when she greets the other doctors, they walk past her without acknowledging her presence. Jaemin catches up, lightly scolding the other intern for not arriving earlier, and instructs Naeun to head into the operating room. Inside, the patient lies on the surgical table, while doctors move around prepping equipment. Naeun gently checks on the patient, asking if she feels cold, to which the woman responds, she's simply nervous. Naeun reassures her with calming words, telling her everything will be fine once she takes a short nap. The patient smiles faintly in response, visibly comforted, and thanks her. As Naeun watches the woman close her eyes, a bittersweet thought surfaces. This woman reminds her of her late mother. She reflects that maybe her mother wouldn't have passed away so young if she had received timely treatment. Her thoughts spiral until someone suddenly snaps her back to the present, asking what she's doing. She quickly apologizes, scolding herself internally for letting her trauma still affect her like this. Refocusing, she begins asking the pre-anesthesia checklist questions and proceeds to administer the anesthesia, then announces that they are ready and requests someone inform Professor Kangjoon Cha. Moments later, the male lead enters as a doctor, assists him with his surgical gown. He states the patient's name and age and declares the start of the gastric resection. Naeun stands beside him, assisting by handing him the necessary surgical instruments. As she watches him work, she's struck by the speed and confidence in his hands. When he notes that 2/3 of the stomach can be preserved and that reconstruction should be considered instead of a complete gastrectomy, though acknowledging that the Billroth 2 method has its downsides, he turns to the interns and residents, assigning them to prepare a detailed report on the topic. Naeun affirms the task, and just then the monitor beeps loudly, disrupting the rhythm of the room. The male lead instructs her to pull the abdominal wall. She obeys immediately, but in doing so realizes how elevated the surgical bed is and how quickly her arms are beginning to ache. It hits her then how true it is that interns are mostly relegated to holding retractors in the OR. Her eyes drift toward Kangjoon Cha once more, and again she's overwhelmed by his incredible skill. Watching him, she thinks that someone like him must have received his talent directly from the heavens. A painful thought crosses her mind. If her mother had been operated on by someone as skilled as Professor Cha, maybe things could have been different. Lost in that moment, she loses grip on the Langenbeck retractor. It slips, drawing a sharp reprimand from the professor as he questions if she's paying attention. Naeun quickly apologizes for her mistake as Jaemin reminds her to be careful with the retractor. Kangjoon Cha glances over, immediately noticing her discomfort, and calmly orders someone to bring her a step stool. With the stool in place, Naeun finds the new height far more manageable, no longer needing to stretch her arms. The rest of the procedure proceeds smoothly, and soon, to her amazement, the surgery is completed in just 2 hours, something that usually takes longer. Kangjoon Cha then calls her over and questions whether she knows why he chose to perform a laparotomy instead of a laparoscopy. Without hesitation, she provides the correct answer. Acknowledging her response, he assigns her the task of writing a report comparing the pros and cons of laparotomies, robot-assisted surgeries, and laparoscopies. As he prepares to leave, the other doctors thank him for his hard work. Naeun watches him go, feeling slightly wronged. She is grateful for the stool, but she hadn't expected a homework assignment. Another doctor soon approaches and compliments her on a job well done. He adds that while Professor June didn't use laparoscopy, his operation was fast and smooth, and that his past patients have consistently recovered well. Internally, Naeun acknowledges why he is called a genius and legendary surgeon. The doctor encourages her to keep up the good work and reminds her about the assignment before instructing the team to prepare for the next surgery and move the patient. Outside the operating room, Kangjoon Cha walks out where a man stands waiting anxiously. The patient's husband. The man immediately approaches him and asks how the surgery went. June assures him that everything went well, prompting the husband to express his relief and gratitude. At that moment, the husband notices his wife being wheeled out on a rollable bed and rushes to her side. Naeun calmly explains to him that she is still under the effects of anesthesia and will wake soon, guiding him to wait in the recovery unit. June watches from a distance, noting the soft smile on Naeun's face as she speaks kindly to the worried husband. He wonders to himself where all her energy and warmth come from and chuckles inwardly, thinking that even though he gave her more work, it will benefit her in the long run. Reflecting on her demeanor, he senses that she has built a wall between them. He debates internally whether to wait it out or try to bridge the distance, concluding that he doesn't want to go back to how things were before. Entering his office, his phone rings. It's Secretary Kim, his father's longtime aide. June responds with a hint of irritation, reminding the secretary he prefers not to be contacted during work hours. Kim informs him that Chairman Cha, June's father, wants him home for dinner and is displeased with his continued absence at family gatherings. When Kim offers to send a car, June declines, saying he will come on his own after work. Hanging up, June leans back in his chair and thinks that avoiding this dinner might be harder than he hoped. Suddenly, a sharp announcement echoes through the hospital speakers, calling him urgently to the operating room. The patient is Rosette E., and he immediately realizes that Hee-jin-ha must be mid-surgery for a pancreatic cancer case. Rushing to the OR, he arrives to hear someone report a dangerous drop in the patient's blood pressure. Without delay, he tells Hee-jin to step back as he takes control. He notices heavy internal bleeding and quickly calls for suction and gauze, methodically working to absorb the blood and clear the area to identify the source. Blood pressure readings drop further to a critical level of 50. Yet he remains composed. After a tense search, he locates the bleeding vein and calls for a vascular clamp. With precision, he controls the bleeding and steers the operation back on track. Hee-jin thanks him and he asks if she can handle the rest, then leaves the room. Outside, he reflects on how unexpected emergencies can unfold even with meticulous planning and preparation, and how it's something every doctor must face and accept. Just then, Naeun approaches and thanks him for his help. Surprised to see her still at the hospital, he asks, and she explains that she has another operation scheduled. He watches her, smiling brightly and looking directly at him, and asks why she seems so upbeat. She tells him that she admires and respects him. At her words, his expression shifts from cheerful to confused. When she confirms her feelings of respect, he tells her to stop overreacting and wonders aloud if she's just now discovering this side of him, saying that her behavior is confusing. She replies that she has always known and promises to work hard and learn from him. Watching her glowing enthusiasm, he thinks to himself how hard it is to hold back around her. He then asks when she'll be off duty, and she responds that the schedules haven't been finalized. From this, he deduces that she's trying to avoid him outside of work. Naeun bows lightly and excuses herself, walking away. Watching her retreat, he resigns himself to being merely a respected figure in her eyes for now. Still, he believes this is how it all begins, and reassures himself that he can't force her feelings but will wait patiently. Arriving at the Grand Cha family mansion, June is greeted respectfully by the bodyguards stationed outside. He gives them a brief nod before making his way toward the entrance, already sensing that something feels off. Standing at the doorway is Secretary Kim, his father's longtime aide, waiting to receive him. June quickly notices that his mother isn't there to greet him, which unsettles him deeply because she is always the first to welcome him home. He asks about her absence, and Kim informs him that Madame Cha has not been feeling well. That revelation sends a jolt of panic through him, and without wasting another second, he hurries to her room. Pushing the door open, he announces his arrival, relieved to see her sitting up and smiling at him. He immediately checks her pulse and asks about her condition. She assures him it's nothing more than digestion issues and a few minor body aches. When he presses her for how long it's been going on, she replies that it hasn't been long. June begins to relax slightly, reasoning that if it's only digestion trouble, it may not be too serious after all. His mother reassures him that his father would never be calm about it if there were real danger, and she explains that they've already been to the hospital and done all the necessary tests. June feels a wave of relief at her words. She then asks if he's greeted his father yet, but he admits that wasn't his priority. She encourages him to go and reminds him that his older brothers are also home and he should greet them respectfully. June agrees, though his mind remains on the test results, thinking that he needs to review them himself. Making his way to the dining room, he finds his father, the chairman of SJ Group, already seated along with his two older brothers. As soon as June steps in, his eldest brother, Kangtae, immediately criticizes him for not greeting their father first, accusing him of having no manners. The second brother, Kang-suk, adds that they had planned to speak to him about it later. But before the tension escalates further, the chairman interrupts and tells them not to raise their voices since their mother is unwell. The chairman then turns his attention to Kangtae and asks if he's visited their mother yet, only to be met with a casual dismissal, as Kangtae says he will do it later. He then glances at June and remarks that there's no need to worry since their father has a son who's a doctor. June ignores the jab and instead asks if the test results are available. His father suggests they eat first, but June, not in the mood, sets down his chopsticks. Kang-suk seizes the moment to sarcastically say that maybe June does have human emotions after all. This time, the chairman loses patience and scolds him harshly. June's expression darkens, but he keeps his silence, not wanting to be baited. His only concern is getting the diagnosis. The chairman then asks June to come with him and orders the other brothers to leave the room. As Kangtae stands up, he tries to bring up his business proposal, which only further angers the chairman. Calling him a fool, the chairman questions his timing and asks whether business matters are more important than their mother's health. When both brothers try to protest, the chairman snaps, reminding them that even though their mother didn't give birth to them, she raised and fed them and deserves their respect. 7%. He declares that it was foolish of him to ever think of them as his true blood. Insulted, the two brothers push back, accusing him of going too far, but the chairman ends the discussion by ordering Secretary Kim to show them out. They leave the mansion begrudgingly, while June quietly watches the entire exchange from a corner, saying nothing. In his father's office, the chairman asks him to sit before handing over his mother's medical records. June flips through the pages, eyes scanning the evaluations. As soon as he understands the gravity of what he's reading, his demeanor shifts to alarm. He immediately insists on accompanying his mother to her next appointment. The chairman, keeping his composure, calmly asks if June really believes he's the best physician for the task. June quickly replies that he plans to take her to Johns Hopkins. But his father says that all arrangements have already been made and tells him not to feel guilty or blame himself, admitting that he too should have looked after her better. As June reflects on the diagnosis, he knows all too well that pancreatic cancer is nearly impossible to detect in its early stages, due to the absence of symptoms. He lowers his head, covering part of his face with his hand, overwhelmed by the possibility that the disease is already malignant. The weight of reality settles in, leaving him deeply distressed. Breaking the silence, the chairman reminds June that his mother's only wish has always been to see him get married and build a happy life. He asks June how his progress on that front is going. June rubs his forehead, already feeling a headache coming on from the direction of the conversation, and says that now isn't the time to talk about such things. But his father presses, pointing out that June cannot operate on her, and he didn't bring him here to do so. He tells him that he himself will take care of her treatment, but what June can do is fulfill her final wish. If she sees him settled and happy, she can die peacefully. June sits silently, his expression unreadable yet heavy with unspoken emotion. After a long pause, he clenches his fist, makes a decision, and declares that he will get married. The chairman immediately asks if he means the vice director's daughter, but June simply requests the list of new blind dates. That alone causes the chairman to ask if she rejected him, but June replies that he doesn't think things would work out between them. Surprised, his father presses again, confirming whether she truly rejected him. June doesn't answer directly, only stating that he'll go on more dates and eventually marry someone decent. In his mind, he acknowledges that this is what his mother wants, and with her time potentially running out, he can no longer afford to hesitate. The chairman, hearing that June has no intentions of marrying the vice director's daughter, announces that there's no reason to continue their financial support to Hanguk University Hospital. June simply responds that his father can do whatever he wants with that, but deep inside he can't help but worry about what this means for Naeun. He knows that if she doesn't want to marry him, there's nothing more he can do to protect her. As June leaves the mansion and heads back, his thoughts drift to the limitations even the greatest doctors face when it comes to their own families. He reflects that the only meaningful thing he can do for his mother now is to get married and create the happiness she longs to see in his life. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and ensure to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time.